Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sermon Braindump. My name is Scott Dalen, an ELCA pastor in Southwest Iowa, and I present these videos every week for a couple of different reasons. First one is just to move my brain out of what I call percolation mode as I kind of work with the background and ponder on the text over the course of the week, and then move into what I call sermonation mode as I'm actually writing and preparing the sermon that I will preach to my congregation for the weekend. That's the first reason. And the second reason, just to allow you, the viewer who have stumbled across this video for whatever reason, to gain some different insight into the assigned gospel text for the week. So that's kind of why I do these things. This particular Sunday, which is May 1st, 2016, the sixth Sunday of Easter, our gospel text comes again out of John chapter 14, verses 23 through 29. The last couple of weeks, we've been in various parts of the Farewell Discourse from John's Gospel, which is interesting considering we're into the season of Easter, which I've kind of talked about before, but I'll just kind of touch on it again. The Farewell Discourse happens at the Last Supper within John's Gospel, and actually is leading into the arrest and death of Jesus. So much of as he's talking about being gone, that's kind of what it's pointing towards, is that his death is pending. And yet we're looking at it now in the season of Easter, between the resurrection, or post-resurrection as they call it, leading up to Ascension. Now, Ascension Day is actually coming up pretty rapidly. It will be next week, next Thursday, the 5th, Cinco de Mayo, and Cinco de Ascension. That's weird. But that's coming up. So we're looking close at the time when Jesus returns to heaven, returns to the Father, and we get another glimpse of that in today's gospel. We hear about Jesus talking about how the paraclete, or the helper, the counselor, the one who comes alongside, which is the Holy Spirit, will be coming in his absence. So that's kind of what things are geared towards here now as we move towards the end of Easter, or the season of Easter, and once we get past Ascension, then there's one more Sunday, and then we are at Pentecost, the day of Pentecost, leading into the season of Pentecost, which is the longest season of the year, the church year anyway. So that's kind of where we're at seasonally, and kind of what's happening there. As we move into May, at least here in my congregation, we will celebrate Confirmation Sunday, or also technically called Affirmation of Baptism now, and that will be happening this Sunday. So part of what my sermon will focus on will end up going that direction. It's kind of been shaping a lot of the thoughts and the work that I've been doing for this sermon in that context. Now, what Affirmation of Baptism is, here within the Lutheran tradition, we practice infant baptism most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. And at that time, there are promises that are being made on behalf of the child. Those promises are made by the parents and by the sponsors, or godparents, whatever you want to call them, as well as the congregation. And all three entities, groups, whatever you want to say, are making promises to raise that child in faith. And then in the rite of confirmation or affirmation of baptism, the individual, the child who's now grown into a middle of the road student, we do it at 8th grade here in my congregation, they've had some education that's gone with it, and but now they are claiming those promises made for them at their baptism. They're now claiming them for themselves. So this is not a sacrament here within the Lutheran Church, but it's connected to one. It's connected to baptism, of course, as I mentioned, and it really lines up with some of the other denominational notions of adult baptism, or believer's baptism, it's often called, that the person makes the choice themselves to be baptized. In doing that, they're making that choice. They are making those promises, claiming the faith as their own in that moment. And so it's a different theological understanding, but yet it's still it's similar in scope to what our students will be doing here. So as they are taking these steps into claiming faith for themselves in the unknown future, that definitely lines up with what's going on with the disciples as Jesus is going to be leaving and they kind of are facing the unknown future on themselves. So definitely some parallels there that will work their way into the sermon quite nicely. That being said, all that background being mentioned, how about we actually jump into the text? So again, for this Sunday, it's John 14:23 through 29. Jesus answered him, those who love me will keep my word, and the Father I'm going to start that over because I lost my place while reading. Jesus answered him, those who love me will keep my word, and my Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them. Whoever does not love me does not keep my words, and the word that you hear is not mine, but is from the Father who sent me. Okay, I'm going to start right there for a moment. So this is kind of an answer to a question of what's been going on. There's been mostly Jesus talking here in the Farewell Discourse, but there is a little bit of back and forth going on, questions being asked, the disciples, various disciples, asking for clarification. And that's an important thing to note. We hear at the beginning there, Jesus answered him. He's answering Judas, not Judas Iscariot, but the other Judas, because there were two Judases, depending on names that you look at. So he has asked a question. At one point, I think it's Philip asks a question. Yeah, Philip asks a question, and Peter has asked a question. So three of the disciples in the course of this time of teaching from Jesus have asked, hey, Lord, can you clarify? We don't quite understand. And that's good for us to remember, that even the disciples, those who had witnessed all of this, had heard the teachings, had seen the miracles, had witnessed all that had gone on, still lack understanding and need the guidance of Christ, of God, of the Spirit, which will come upon them. So even the disciples need that. So that's good for us to remember too, because we're also disciples. We're also followers of Christ, and the Spirit guides us in that as well. Now, when it talks about those who keep my word, that's the same language as keeping the Sabbath. So recognizing the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath, honoring the Sabbath. So that's the same notion of keeping my words, honoring my words, recognizing my words, because they are teaching. They're teaching of God. They're good. And those who do, my Father and I will come and will make our home with them. We will abide with them. It's always Jesus' thing here in John. It's abide. Come and see. Come and stay. Come and remain with me, abide with me, and we will abide with you. That's what he said. Okay, moving on. I have said these things to you while I am still with you, but the advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you everything and remind you of all that I have said to you. Okay, so the advocate there, that's that Greek word paraclete. Not parakeet, sounds very similar, but not the same word. But it's a word that's really, we can't really translate it very well. But advocate, counselor, helper, the best way that I've ever heard it described is one who comes alongside. So think of a lawyer who's representing you in a trial, or a counselor who's with you to offer advice in a meeting. Things of that nature. Someone who's there to help you, not necessarily to do things for you and to dictate what you're going to do, but to guide you and help you. That's this paraclete, this helper. And Jesus says it's the Holy Spirit. It's the third member of the triune God who comes among us in ways that we can't understand, and yet that's the promise that Jesus makes, that that the Spirit comes to us, and it will remind us of everything of all that Jesus has said. It will remind us of Jesus' words. It will continue to teach us. This is an important thing to recognize, that though Jesus has been here and has now returned to heaven, there's still more to learn. There's still more to understand. There's still more to be revealed. And the Holy Spirit does that. It does it in our lives as we grow and mature in our faith, and it continues to reveal that which God is up to in the world. Sometimes in ways that we can understand, sometimes in ways that are beyond our understanding. But that's okay. And that helper is there to help us and to comfort us in times when maybe things don't make sense, when maybe things seem to be a little too much for us. So, okay, so that's all going on. Let's continue. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give it to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. You heard me say to you, I am going away, and I am coming to you. If you loved me, you would rejoice that I am going to the Father, because the Father is greater than I. And now I have told you this before it occurs, so that when it does occur, you may believe. All right, so that's the end of it. So again, Jesus is reminding them, I'm leaving. But it's not over. The Helper, the Advocate, the Spirit will come to you, and I'm going to the Father, and I'm going to prepare a place for you, as we've heard before in the Farewell Discourse. I'm reminding you of these things now, so when it happens, and it's about to, so that you will believe, so that you will not be afraid. Don't let your hearts be troubled. So all of that, and peace I leave with you, and I give you peace. And that's important to remember, deciding that this is happening. This is the Last Supper, and post-resurrection, when Jesus appears to the disciples, and it's in the locked room, and we hear it happens twice, a week apart, because Thomas is not there the first time, and then he is there the second time. And both times, the first thing Jesus says to them is, peace to you. He knows that they are in strife at that time, because he's been killed, he's been crucified, he's been dead, and the confusion that goes along with that. And it happens in our lives too, that we have a God who died, and we live a life that's messy, and it doesn't always make sense, and it's not supposed to make sense, and so yes, our hearts are sometimes troubled, and yet Jesus' peace is upon us and gives us the ability to hope. Our faith that Jesus will do, or that God will do what he says he will do, translates into that. So that's a lot of what's happening here in this text. It's as per usual in the gospel, and particularly in John. There's a lot going on, and every line, every word, every verse is important, and has important stuff for us to remember and hold on to. So that's kind of what's happening. If you have thoughts, questions, comments based on what you've heard, what you've read, please share those down in the comment section. We'll continue the conversation that way. Otherwise, I hope you have a blessed week, and we'll catch you next time.